what to do in the meantime, and why it doesn't matter. The audiobook by Dr. Michael Richard Lucas. Narrated by me, Samantha. Arranged and produced by Michael Richard Lucas. Chapter 9. This call may be monitored for no reason at all. Feminist loves The Bachelor. Currently, our character's personality was coffee and antidepressants. Snickers has a pretty cool social media campaign. You guys should check it out, says person to our character. Dependably, undependable, life in a simulation, brain in a vat. Philosophical problems, outside the context of new technology, as opposed to how this already happens via logos, etc. Our character had to eat the silence. They had to like it to live in discomfort, where when nobody else could. For people who needed our character to be silent, they sure were prodding them a lot. Countless ways to look for the movie you can't watch. Is 3 purple? Our character had been reliving the past so much, it was becoming stale. They were starting to experience reality again, in bits and pieces, Reese's Pieces, in fits and starts, it tits and tarts. They could feel it coming back, to pass the time. They wrote an anonymous advice column for the local paper. It got old. They lost steam. Everything comes at a cost. The economics of life. The lie of part-time jobs. Our character lived in a part of the freest nation where there was a disproportionate significance placed on family values. Nobody actually knew what this meant. It functioned similarly to professionalism. You could never have it. You could only be blamed for not having it. Peak brand awareness only lasted 30 seconds in brand experience. Full release brand experience. Our character was bound to swerve, but as long as they stayed in between the lines, for the most part, they'd probably be okay. An artist should always know the audience they are serving, as a person, as well. Who you are serving tells you a lot about yourself. It tells you what you currently think is important. If our character was serving something, or someone, they did not hold in high esteem, they should rethink their service, because they will inevitably disappoint. Do they want to disappoint people who will always be disappointed? Or do they want to disappoint those who might not be disappointed? A narrative that needs an end. Much more convenient than actually dealing with the issue. The bad guys look a lot like bad guys. Our character ran a marathon for a fundraiser. Doctors Without Borders. Always read the fine print. Our character was really running all those miles, and raising all that money, for a group of doctors who stand really close to people. Extremely normal political party has never been right about anything. Work can put you to sleep, when thought itself inevitably fails. The trauma of not having a shared truth. I understand I'm angry at gas prices, but alternative energy is for wimps. Join us back. Now, ya here. Art is the process of accepting the unknown, knowing you will be wrong, or at least outdated, knowing what you are making, you will disagree with, the cringe, but art is doing it anyway. Is it 75% or 76%? Crunch the data. Perpetual calculation nation. Numbers with no context are no longer numbers. Top 10 questions to ask at the end of an academic job interview. What steps did you take to sabotage the previous employees? Career? Were they ever able to financially, mentally recover from the trauma you induced? 2 men getting married? What's next? A man marrying his horse. It wasn't. Or his dog? Or me marrying my dog? My dog that I love very much? My dog that I want to marry? Look at him walk. Damn. Hot dog. With your art you must find a way for the reader to feel stupid, small, and insignificant. This isn't what you necessarily want to do, especially if you aren't an evil person. But in competition nation it is often the only way to get the reader's attention. You must make this sacrifice. Even if you don't want to be mean. If you want your book to be read, or taken seriously, just as you might not want to write incomplete sentences, you might not want to insult your reader. But this is the world we live in. You already knew this, potential author, so it would be mean of you to not be mean to your reader. If you want them to read your book, if the rest of the book has a chance of helping them. I voted for Orange Man for religious reasons. What religion? The color orange? Burps are mouth farts. The life of our character was like that of many others. They had many opportunities to mess up, but few opportunities to succeed. Or so they thought. Or so it seemed. Or so it was. It was. The definition of success and failure was blurry, at best. This struggle was central to their sense of self, whether it should have been, or not. During other space-times, they forgot about all these things. This kept happening for many years. There are only two emotions, hopefulness and helplessness. Everything else is fear. But there was a response, in the form of never-ending afternoons. Make afternoons great again. Our character wasn't narcissistic. Were they? Who are we to judge? Our author had to be narcissistic about our character. Our author had to be more narcissistic about our character than our character. So at least our character wasn't as narcissistic about themselves. Maybe that's the right level of narcissism? Orange Man's terrible idea. Still terrible. It never got any better than hey ya. If you know this is the way things actually are, you can warn people about aspects of yourself, but they will forget, and then they will blame you, forgetting you told them. This would probably happen. By warning them, you also plant the idea in their head. They will think they know how to critique you in the future. In competition nation this will only end badly. Everything can only end badly. They will blame you for the thing you warned them not to blame you for. They will forget. Everyone forgets. You cannot keep score in competition nation, even though everyone else is. If you keep score, you will lose, and not be able to love anyone. Everyone makes mistakes, even yourself. It's best to be alone. But if you can't do that, try writing something about flannel, hay and Indian summers. That's how the story could have started. If it feels like you read this before, you have. Marriages hold together when both persons can see themselves dying in the place where they are, envisioning your future end, the beginning of the end. Like all decisions, birth, it creates and adheres to a field of difference, not just any, a particular life or being that contains a field of difference. Is that all there is? We don't know. But that's all we can see right now. The limits of life. Circumscribing the field of difference. Freest nation. Feest nation. Fee-infested nation. Flea-infested nationalism. Flat fee fleas flea nation. Andre 3000 for president. To get anything accomplished during our character's space-time it took a series of managerial miracles. Red tape. No red walls. Reinforced glass doors. Weapons-grade barricades. For the most basic services, it took a modern-day Hercules to schedule a doctor's appointment. If you moved anywhere in freest nation, it took local healthcare services years to catch up to this inevitable and commonplace occurrence. They could only treat emergencies, or patients who they had seen for a minimum of 10 years. Everyone else was SOL. Everyone else was suspect. Everyone else was a foreigner. Everyone who worked in healthcare had to fight for their healthcare. So what made these outsiders so special? They just received these services, without going to war every day, and for free? Not on my watch. They had to go through front desk Nancy first, a formidable opponent. There was no establishing in our character's space-time. There was simply too much money to be made off of every individual's inevitable inconsistencies. This was your address last year, and this is your address now. Sorry, they are different. Are you trying to trick us into giving you life-saving medical care? Nance and Randy were great at calling out this long con. This scheme of yours to get health care, even if you paid for it. We do not trust you. It is going to take us 5 million years to process this, and in 5 million years, we will tell you, you need to reach another department. That'll be $5 million. Please. It's much easier to blame the individual. Plus, people were already good at this. Who are we to stop them? To hire someone with the foresight to plan around these contingencies was too expensive. Plus, experts talked funny, and didn't wear the clothes we wear, and didn't like the commercials we liked, etc. This happened all the space-time. During our characters' space-time, there were hardly contingencies anymore, because they happened every day, which we would know, if anyone was paying attention, or was able to work here long enough. Sorry, I've been transferred to another branch. Michelle or Janice will contact you in 5 million years about establishing a new account with us. They will provide you with no new information. Let us know how we did with a quick customer survey. Book bans look very stupid in relation to the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Think of all the millions of works that have already been written. But we need to rewrite, because we lost the Library of Alexandria. How far could literature go before it became too repulsive? Perhaps we haven't even scratched the surface. They hadn't. Nuance was impossible during our character's space-time. Our character wanted to post a critical article about their city's appalling ambulance shortage, but they didn't want to sound like the extremely normal political party's hysterical racist homophobic bemoaning of big cities. Our character couldn't be critical. They wanted to be critical of the current president, but they couldn't. The alternative was Orange Man, who wanted to destroy freest nation, to free it from being free. The extremely normal political party defund the people. If you never hear from me again, I ran out of storage space on my devices, and gave up. PYTDTF. This British version still better. Maybe this is what they didn't like about our character. Their disregard for the existence of others, unless they were useful to them, or posed a threat to their existence. But isn't this how we all treat one another, in neoliberal space-time? Or is this human nature? Limited space-time. How else you expect our characters to act? At some point all the small stuff becomes the big stuff, and the big stuff becomes the small stuff. The universe makes spheres, atoms and stars, and disks. The disks were merely cross-sections of the spheres. The disks attempt to make a perfect sphere, but are never able to get small enough on the edges to be anything other than disks attempting to make up the cross-section of the sphere, the end points, preventing the perfect sphere, perpetuating the process of forming. Things strive to end in a sphere. It becomes closed. Everything is frozen. It has reached the shape it was supposed to become. Space-time has stopped. Why spheres? Sky Wizard likes them? Sky Wizard is them? Pressure is spherical. What's the opposite of a sphere? Dark matter, the non-spherical pressure forming the spheres. Dark matter is the graviton, the God particle, the thing turning everything into spheres. For some reason, unknown. Hypotheses non-fingo. Maybe Sky Wizard is bored? That would explain all the wars. Or maybe they just really like spheres. Space, time, energy, mass, being, all spherical. Extremely normal political party parents brag. Child back from college, and dating a doctor, then reject climate change, and evolution. Everything has been named. Rich older Democrats still trying to find candidate who will change nothing. Which is more difficult? Convincing friends you're an artist? Or not an alcoholic? Our character was anxious about the cost of their anxiety medication. Rich Texans, still able to get abortions. Out of state, rich white Southerners, still able to get abortions. Somehow, family patriarchs stayed rich and white. Perhaps the opposite of a sphere would be this book. Our writer had tricked themselves into writing again. The opposite of a sphere would be a delusion rhizome. Hypotheses non-fingo. But maybe it doesn't matter if I understand it? Maybe it only matters if our reader understands it, overstands it. Dark matter is rhizomatic. All we know, it likes creating spheres. For some reason. What's the reason? Hypotheses non fingo. The missing link between the rhizome and the sphere. How to connect them. The assumption. Large scales can work on smaller scales. Scholar sarcastically scales scholastic scoliosis. Maybe we are the medium scale? The medium of scale. The word, and the action, is the space-time, in-betweenness. Strange space-times call for strange solutions dissolutions. What if our writer actually did have something to say? Would they have already turned enough people away? Our character could have a noble truth. As much as a noble lie. It could be. As much as it couldn't. And it would take place, etc. Maybe our writer did have something important to say? Maybe they should write all these things down? Was it morally worse to withhold answers? If they did have them, no one else appeared to have any decent solutions. Our writer would tell others they were almost done writing their book, so that, maybe they would be, like promising yourself you'll actually finish this project. It took much longer than everyone, including our writer, thought it would, and it cost much more space-time than anyone could imagine. But that's not too strange. Something that is genuinely strange, like this book, would naturally take a strange amount of space-time to make. Forever bound to a strange space-time, the one constant, just like our character, idiot who doesn't understand history, states' rights, pro-states' rights, anti-human rights, pro-states' rights, pro-regional inefficiency, pro-states' rights, anti-future, pro-states' rights, anti-American. The past is a funny thing, so why aren't we all laughing? The past allows you to look back, and wonder, how you could have been so blind. But it is only a window, to look but not touch. Torture, a human not able to act, perhaps not as dramatic as we think. Given another chance, most of us would probably do the same thing, over again, etc. Wincing at lost opportunities. We probably acted like we would act today, given the circumstances. The past can only confront, it can't comfort, it can only conform. We know what happened, or at least, more than the future, more than what will have happened. It doesn't make sense, unless we are trying to become spherical again. We can look at the whole, and realize we survived it. The best way our character found was to tell a story. Our character, if they were going to be a writer, knew the story needed to cover the necessary range of information in a remarkably limited amount of space-time, without seeming too direct, or too eager, or too boring, etc. Under the cover of narrative economy, our character was able to do many things at once. This spring, Ivy Oxbridge sponsored by Arby's TurboTax will graduate at least 5 authoritarian leaders who depend on bad interpretations of history for the genocides they'll carry out. Our character wasn't superstitious, but they were a little stitious. NRASTFU. During our character's space-time, what was paraded as freedom of choice was the inefficiency of the system preventing oppressed peoples from organizing or formulating a coherent thought-response narrative. Logos. The oppressed stayed oppressed, in the service of small business, whose necks they were standing on, blocking common-sense mergers, consolidations, and ultimately the ability to provide a superior service product. What difference did it make if our character watched their favorite show on Netflix or YouTube? What difference did it make which bank was charging them overdraft fees, insurance premiums, etc.? Cable and internet, choosing between one or two large companies, making their service worse, to charge for a premium subscription. Products and services were not getting better, but noticeably worse. It wasn't profitable for products to improve. It was only profitable to outlawyer and outbank other companies. Lawyers, bankers, and politicians realized how worthless they were. Never happened. They didn't make a product. They didn't provide a service for people, which made them double down on their importance. Little angry Napoleons, God's bravest soldiers. Companies were realizing how worthless they were. They never did, etc. Nobody had brand loyalty. This was a fiction. Their marketing teams had imagined, and then believed, forgetting they created it. Companies thought they were important, but really, they were boring as Popster. Employees didn't have to be proud to work for them. Employees needed a paycheck, and health insurance, and the ability to leave. The freest market was a shield, a smokescreen, protecting lawyers, bankers, and politicians from the oppressed, which made the fairy tale of economic ascension even more crucial. Protesters protesting wrong. Nance and Randy couldn't wait for their upcoming road trip. Then, they were very happy it was over. It was good to be back home. We could question whether our character was really here, or if they are somewhere someone else, virtually plugged into a reality they forget was there. Enough space-time passes. Enough logos passes. Our character forgets it's there, to stay within it. Perhaps they had been using it too much, pushing to its limit. Never has there been a space-time that's never been this space-time. Maybe all we can say about our space-time, the most aware humanity has been of the inadequacies of humanity, while not being able to do anything about the inadequacies of humanity. Dictators use Goebbels style propaganda, historical interpretations in a space-time well beyond it, come so far to be so far behind. Our character felt this way. They were no longer young, relative to spans of space-time during their space-time. It's only as far as we know. Our character hasn't done this all before. There's nothing that says something can't be anything, and so we must be satisfied by explaining how things work, but not why. Can you know both? Superimposition or regular imposition? Imposition, inquisition, the why, long missing, lost to deep space-time. Maybe we'll find it here. They didn't. Grandma, too fast. Too furious. Internets devolve into thirst traps and pyramid schemes. Stop dancing. Nance moving things around loudly in the kitchen, while Randy watches the game on the couch. We don't need technological advances to be lost in spectacle, but currently, maybe it helps? On our phones, reading the Bible, etc. All simulacrum. Our character was currently alive, therefore, not dead. Therefore, cannot have died in the future. Now is all we can know. Eternally in the now, unless we choose not to be. If space-time doesn't work the way we think it does, when does this leave our character? During our character's space-time, no one could agree on a now. The only thing keeping it going, the only connection within the rhizome, a lack of consensus on space-time, the opposite of a sphere. Space-time is our currency? Hoarding space-time. T-shirt ideas. Beer 30. Random image of a rhinoceros. Learn more about our updated terms of service. Nance and Randy were surprised how much it rained here. Did it snow in the winter? Still all chickens. Always had been. Hear me out. Who had trench warfare for 2022? All emotions. Made sense through deep space-time. Through logos, discount space-time. Our character could only rent anything that didn't make sense in the realm of space-time. Could be too occupied by space, could be too occupied by time. We need to know how we are time, and it is us. More Kairos, less Chronos. What space-time do you identify as when we escape into our minds? Virtual reality, a hat on a hat. How many is it? 11 or 12 and 5? Our character, furiously attempting to paint another picture of existence. Various rhetorical and literary devices. More to escape to. Out of the thicket. But seriously, we had a good run. Kind of. But surely, we are done. We must be done. We are not able to find the next thing. Now everything moves backward and deteriorates. Predicting tragedy has become too easy. We need to keep the populace talented but unprofessional, or professional but not talented. Do not let them achieve their dreams. It would end the extremely normal money system. There need to be poor to make the rich. And there I was. Our character had a current love interest forever unreachable before them. Disinterested love interest. Previous love interest unreachable in the other direction. This tension helped create motivations, generating distractions, all the better for our character's brainless daily labor. Click the link below. Comment. Follow. Will you take this survey? Party size. Fund size. Who was the fucking genius? Who decided? Our employers should determine who gets healthcare. Our character worked really soft. Freest nation listed as developing country. Instead of rooting for a team, our character's son says he is winning for a team, and our character liked that better. In our character's biopic montage, they hoped this was the part where they were doing some of their best work. This space-time wasn't going to be fun. Our character might as well write. If they were a writer, they weren't going anywhere during this space-time, but still required themselves to acknowledge these possibilities. That's why it's important to leave little things here and there that are neutral, far ahead in the future or past, always gesturing to the unknown. Art is always about art. Art is always about what it is not, the unknown. And yet, there was still something unique and entertaining about relatable characters, with clear themes and motives. It couldn't escape the mind of our writer, our character, etc. Our writer didn't even bother to look back, to see what the name of our character had been. The only good ideas, from the poor and insane, the only ones who have to think them, to exist, etc. And your knowledge of expansion was expanded. Once again, there is the way the box was meant to be opened, and there is the way our character opened it. Nance and Randy were not impressed. It looked better on the brochure. Submit to the cold quiet comfort of mediocrity, so you won't want to do it for a while. All this waste time. Our character didn't want to do anything. Our character didn't want to go anywhere. Our character didn't want to talk to anyone. Our character found themselves in a town of forgottens. People wanting to be forgotten, but had to keep living. Why? Out of habit. Habit out of habit. Some disease. Both sides have good points, says centrist extremely normal political party. Honesty was almost never the best policy. The exigency for a policy implied it was not honest. Anyone who lived long enough had a history. Our writer could only get lost in work. Our character wanted nothing to do with anyone's plans. Count me out of everything. They did not want to be dependable for anything. If our character could fall asleep, it would be different. They could go to the outer world, come back refreshed, but they just lay there, here, etc. Wake up late, be unproductive, and crushed. Repeat. Our character had lived this before. If only our character could remember how they got themselves out of this mess. Last space-time. Throughout our story, there are references to the accumulation of things unrelated to the main plot, but referencing, simulacrum-like, the main idea of the plot, creating a sphere. Small things add up and create big problems, surprising the onlookers, who don't notice things adding up, but watch in wonder. Our character remembered. They knew when their project needed to end, when everyone wanted them to stop. They had worn out their welcome everywhere. It was time again to be obsessed with their public image every second of the day. Our character did not look forward to this. During our character's space-time, you had 2 panic-stricken weeks, at best, per year to dedicate yourself to something semi-important. Everyone could know you by. That could open up possibilities. Prior to complete destitution, leading up to these 2 weeks, you could work on it multiple days a week, for probably 2 months before, and 2 months after. The 2 weeks of batshit crazy work The setting must be an island, or someplace isolated. We need to get a sense that this is the world, and nothing exists outside it, just like nothing we know exists outside the actual world. I'm unsure of the place our character works. People still work during this space-time, a place they somewhat enjoy. Our character enjoys the people they work with enough. Our character says, this and that could be better, but essentially, it's the perfect job. For right now, it's fine, I'm really alright, etc. Our character has great relationships with their family and friends. Our character felt known. This first part, which is the intro to the movie, is shot with soft tones, beautiful scenery, smooth and precise camera angles and frames. T-shirt. Ideas. Quick. Have fun. Throughout this period, we learn of our character's ambitions to be some kind of government leader. Our character had high aspirations and realistic ways of achieving them, believable at least. Our character aspires to study at a prestigious university. There's only one on the island. If you hear a voice nobody responds to, they are probably talking to you. Our character wakes up the next morning, regardless of if it's morning. Our character was one of those who couldn't escape existence. It kept happening to them, at them, with them, etc. Our character woke up, already with a story about how they were still alive, no matter how unlikely, etc. Vagabonds, gypsies. These people kept moving west to get away from their families, in cramped apartments on the East Coast, the poverty and aristocracy of the South, the waspy North, etc. Leaving New York, Boston, Florida, Texas, Chicago, South Dakota, Minnesota, etc. Escaping the Baptists, the Protestants, the Mormons, the Jews, the old school Catholics, etc. The puritanical passive-aggressive ethos, but not in the Wild West. Just people, trying to be people. The West Coast was much more chill, at least, that was the attempt. They were essentially Australians. Our character decided to make things important in their life that would provide lasting rewards. As long as our character had a purpose and goal in mind, they told themselves, they'd be fine. I am fine. I've gotten better at recognizing what has been constructed by me, by others, etc. Because of this, our character learned how to arrange themselves to maximize lasting benefits. The superimposition of meanings, ones and zeros. It could be both things in a quantum world, and also neither. The world could be going crazy, and our character could also be going crazy. It didn't have to be one or the other. The two didn't have to be related, independent of each other, mutually exclusive, inclusive. The world falling apart apparently did not justify our character's actions. Post hoc. Post already making a problematic assumption of space-time, if only to show our character they did not have to succumb to the chaos surrounding them. Or could they? States and corporations now have more rights than people. States surpass women in rights. Oh good. Another day. Public health experts recommend not eating shit. Extremely normal political party responds with poop feast. Extremely normal political party doesn't evacuate wildfire because government told them to. All burned. Our character only used what they used. It's not that our character had a bad memory. What? The knowledge our character didn't find useful, they could never remember. Or could they? The problem was, they didn't know. The knowledge was going to be important. At the space-time, etc. The games our character played might not have a purpose, but they revealed how much space-time our character had on their hands. They made the same mistakes, but recognized them sooner, covered them up better. As long as their head was above water, more than under, they'd be fine. Our character was thinking of getting into organized crime or cage fighting. They would create confrontation whenever possible, probably get more tattoos too, If our character was Sky Wizard, would a perfect being be boring? Everything going their way? Would our character create obstacles to pass the space-time? Would we? What would satisfy their desire to pass along their genes? Babies. Babies. We must have more babies. Olympic ads inspire future brand marketing strategists. Apropos of nothing. Historians in 2069. Hold on to your asses. Today's lecture is on 2022. In some neighborhoods, our character was known affectionately as that weird white dude. Whenever the background noise got too thick, whenever our character felt a wall between themselves and specific situations, whenever they had problems listening to what people were saying, when our character would clumsily drop things, they knew it was time to move on. Impossible to tell if their novel, building, film, car, sandwich makes them famous. Our character, daydreaming about fame again. Untrustworthy author, untrustworthy reader. Our characters started writing things down to forget about them. They could go back later, remind, forget themselves. If they wanted, they wouldn't have to carry it around with them anymore. Our character, our author, felt they should write because they had a lot to talk about. It seemed they had lived a lot, more or less than others around them. Hard to tell. This spring, Ivy Oxbridge, Santa Barbara Air Guard will graduate at least 10 students who will be found guilty of owning a chain of sex islands. Generations passed. The people forgot. The world went on without them. Communication severed for hundreds of years. Cataclysmic events. Our character assumed one of their biggest flaws was being too sexy. No great inspiring idea, or higher calling, a greater being, but having nothing better to do. Our character always read about these types of trips. The open road. They figured they'd copy what other people did. Our character wasn't looking for anything. They weren't sure if they should. Our character often wondered how many times they'd thought of doing this. If they'd already done it before, was it even their choice? It wasn't. It wasn't an action, just a reaction to the world around them, and a situated position to be within. Constructing the building went well, with our character's constant need for explanation and analysis, a never-ending journey, tiresome, full of faults and contradictions, yet it passed the space-time, a productive and socially acceptable outlet for insanity. Our character could be proud of that, at least. Studies show that, studies show that, studies show that, etc. New study, studied wrong. New study, studied too hard. Our characters sympathized with people that had less than them, even when it was inconvenient. It was one of their best attributes, and they didn't even know it. It was rumored in the past people on the island had left. Nobody knew if this was true. Hard to believe. There was no reason to leave the island. It had everything. Our character encountered a slew of hardships. However, with the help of family and friends, they pulled through despite their family and friends. Both were popular narratives. During the space-time, war defeats nuance. Don't write something for someone who won't read it. They won't read it. And now what have you gained? Ulterior motives can be a good thing, especially good ones. You've never died before, but think of all the times you practiced when you were alive. All we ever do? A death in life, a life in death, etc. To prevent your mind from going there. Things didn't become the way they were until they went. Free speech costs 10K. Free speech costs too much. Free speech a modern luxury, etc. Passenger heard that Alaska Airlines might have bought Spirit Airlines. They hadn't. Oh, very interesting. It wasn't. The passenger continued. To everyone's dismay, I'll paraphrase. It was something about a news report that probably never happened. Reporting about something that probably never happened. But this passenger was definitely one of those people who could think it had happened, etc. Nobody wanted our author to finish their building. A sign. It had to be built. The only one. So rarely could people agree on anything. Maybe this building would bring them all together, create a common enemy for them? Reverse conspiracy theorist. On conspiracy realist. So rarely could people agree on anything, and rare things could be expensive, if you knew how to sell them, etc. So whether the building was good or not, hardly mattered. It was rare, or not rare enough, etc. Our character and the others acted illogically at times, because their society wasn't logical. Sounds reasonable. You can't reason with the unreasonable, to get what they wanted. During our character's space-time, they had to take it, so they could forget they wanted it. The end goal, a resolution, dissipating all meaning, so meaning can be made again. The sacrifice, our character's society, built monsters, to banish. Ticket sales increased. They always thought to live correctly, there must be a balance of logic and emotions. Perhaps the island wasn't accurate with itself. Oh good, another day. Trying to please the algorithm. Our character took a shower with clothes on. It felt like they were breaking every law ever written. Explore our digital environment. New trial period. Don't miss out. Top 10 questions to ask in general. Will this position be cut next year? How much longer? Could the corporate academy survive? Not long. Our character could not shake the fact. The things that happened to them had happened to them, and they still had happened to them. When they woke up in the morning, the dreams hadn't, but everything else had. Our character could do nothing about it for years. So they did something about something else instead. Let's say they opened a bakery, etc. The things that had happened provided great motivation, but not necessarily peace of mind, etc. But it was something. What else was there for them here? Religion could only tell people what not to do. When it came to what to do, religion failed epically. If you want to create profit, create scarcity. There's a lot of weird people. Someone's gotta like you. The sky is an ocean to a bird. Skyfish. All stereotypical names and places. Love story. So has to be in France. Or Italy. Spain, unspecified Mediterranean, specific space-time period, only to show how universal it is. Classic modern. Our character would fall into a fit of rage, if they had the energy. The problem subsisted within the solution. Problem didn't necessarily mean bad, it just usually was. Our character should find worthy problems. The answer changes the structure of the problematic field environment. There are always more ways to answer the problem. Every writer writes because they don't think we are where we all agree we think we are, but they are hardly ever proven right in their life space-times. If most people are wrong about something, the issue must be pervasive. It must be an important issue. If many people have a strong opinion about it, most people must necessarily disagree with you. If everyone around you agrees with you, that's not necessarily a good thing. If everyone around you doesn't agree with you, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And vice versa. They won't believe what you are saying during your life space-time, because it's their life space-time too, and they know more about their world than you, right? Unless they don't. And this is why they are offended all the space-time. People don't want some solutions, because some solutions solve the problem. But without the problem, what are these people? If one old man gets a name wrong, it's a gaffe. If the other old man gets a name wrong, the angry mob could murder the wrong person. Pick your poison. In the evolution of humans, they were now further behind. They wrote, in an attempt to correct this, to align the world with themselves, and hopefully themselves with the world, in the hopes of either finding a shared reality, or passing the space-time. What if our character finds out this world is too far lost to itself? Or they are too far lost to themselves? They shouldn't be able to think this, if they can't do anything about it. The answers were not leaving this gravitational field. Apparently, the leader said they didn't know what would happen, but they ventured a guess. Irregardlessness. Our character wanted to perpetually withhold judgment of all others, but they did not have that luxury in their life space-time. All who wander endless night, people who were able to admit they didn't know, were the only ones our character could trust. If being a bad person means being a good follower of winemaker, you might not be a follower of winemaker either. Nance and Randy were always performing. It was exhausting to everyone around them. Our character was having problems at work. They couldn't sleep at night. Our character didn't know if they should tell someone. Maybe it will pass, and it did. They wondered what their co-workers thought they were going through. Had their co-workers asked them any personal questions? Didn't Nance seem genuinely concerned when she asked our character how they were doing? Our character thought they remembered. They might have. They thought Nance was being performative, for humorous effect. They laughed initially. Maybe that's why Nance gave them a strange look. Didn't Nance always give them a strange look? Didn't they? Didn't Nance give everyone a strange look? Maybe they'd see what Randy had to say. He had too much to say. Our reader, and the writer upon reading, as they wrote, and the writer upon rereading, as they proved. This has been proved. Started to see some tension at work in the work. Something small, a slight problem, previously, now amplified. Work starts going badly, but now, for other reasons. This chain reaction was, of course, our character's eternal demise. Or it was Monday. Perhaps our character's life space-time would never get any better than it was. From that point on, our character knew it too. They just tried really hard not to think it, and it seemed to get them through the day. Enough. We would forget it too. So then, did anything ever happen? At life space-times our character could stand the silence. Their head was clearer. It's not that things didn't affect them. They had the ability to not react, to unact. Currently, they were terrified of any emotions. They seemed to be untrustworthy. Tomorrow, for sure. Sounds good. Bye. In another space-time our character didn't get into the prestigious university on the island still. However, they did have a more reasonable love life. It balanced out in the end, but currently, our character would be angry because of this failure. Their life was boring and terrible. It wasn't really all because some insignificant piece of paper lost in the application process or some such technicality was significant to the hiring committee. It wasn't. But things would get better, or they would end. But they hadn't ended yet. So our character supposed that's something. Please send your emails to the address that's going to show up at the bottom of this screen. I look like such a lovely performer tonight. Thank me for coming.